the circumstances when I go to a conference and I'm in motion constantly, and part of the time listening to speakers, other part of the time running around trying to interview people. So, and without a crew. So at this moment, just let's repeat this. So your name is Erin.
Erin Green Hicks.
Okay.
And my real last name would be Rothschild if I had stayed in the family.
Okay.
Yes.
And I heard you speak, and it was really stunning. And I want to give you credit here because it can't have been easy.
It wasn't easy at all.
Okay. And I don't know if you've done much public speaking, but
no, just on Friday was my first time ever.
Okay. And you handled yourself very well, and you were very credible. And this is has to be a very difficult situation, but it's a very important sort of revelation for you and for the people out there. And thank you for having the courage to actually, to do a Camelot interview. I'm sure after you do this, you're going to get a lot of flack for having done so. And so I'm just giving you a heads up. Okay.
I'm prepared. That's why I'm doing it now, and I understand the ramifications of the entire situation.
Okay, yes. Great. So at this moment, can you sort of talk a little bit about when you say had you remained part of the family?
When I was born, they put me they took my father and I and put us outside of the family. And my father was the head of the military shadow government, and he put me into MK Ultra. They took us out of the family so that I could be in these programs. Okay,
and can you talk about your father and mother? They're is it your father who is the Rothschild?
Yes. My father's a Rothschild, my mother was a Sinclair.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. And you say he was head of the shadow government. Can you explain?
The military part of the shadow government. He had to deal with time travel. He dealt with MK, all the Black Ops programs at the time, from the 1940s until the 1970s.
Okay. Are you able to say his name?
R.C. Green Sr.
Okay.
Everything's wiped on him. When he tried to, after he was remarried, after my mother passed away, he tried to get his birth certificate to go to Ireland, and there is no record of his birth. There's no record of my father anywhere. There's no medical records, there's no military records, there's no congressional records, there's no anything on my father.
Fascinating.
Yes.
And
I've never seen my birth certificate either. Never.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about your mother?
My mother, all I know about my mother really, my mother over here wasn't my real mother. My mother, see, that this is part of what I didn't speak about Friday. We walked over here from another dimension, my father and I. So the Rothschild bloodline that I am from is from the other dimension. I am not from the Rothschild bloodline from over here.
Okay.
Yes.
And can you explain how you know that?
Project Ibis.
Okay, and can you talk about that?
That's very difficult. Somebody had come up to me the other day and asked me a question I've been waiting to hear my entire life. And it was, do I remember my rescue? And he meant my rescue from Canada, from Ibis, when I was being stored. And
when you're being what?
Stored.
Stored.
Yes. We're stored until we're needed. When they regress us, they keep us in fetal state until they need us again.
Okay.
It's difficult to understand unless you've actually lived it.
Sure, of course.
I remember everything from before I came over here. I have full recollection of my life from before.
Okay, so would you say you came from a parallel dimension?
Yes, parallel universe that is exactly like this one, only they were peaceful, they brought peace. So what happens is, because I knew how to bring peace and I was part of Ibis, I was brought over here and regressed, and then when I was put into MK Ultra, they had to break me down, all the peacefulness I knew and all of everything that I knew from over there. It still was inside of me, but it was pushed behind a block, and I was broken down to be part of this place here so that I could do what I had to do, which was be part of these programs.
Okay, so because I've interviewed or gotten information from Michael Prince, who is also known as James Casbolt, and has talked about Project Ibis. Mm-hmm. So in what way are you part of were you part of Project Ibis?
There's a lot of it I can't talk about.
Okay.
And I'm not prepared to talk about it fully. It's painful for me. Because I've had so many regressions. I haven't had just one or two or three. It's a constant ongoing thing. They take me and they put me from universe to universe to universe, and once one becomes peaceful, I get regressed, and then I get put in another one. Then when that one becomes peaceful, I get regressed again and put in another one. And the time that I came over to this one, my entire family, my children, and my husband came over with me. Now, they're not part of Project Ibis, but they got brought over with me.
Okay. And what's the sensation for them when you say being brought over with you? In other words, because I assume, you know, you've reached a certain age in this universe, and they also, but you wouldn't have met him until a certain point.
Right. My father had access to time travel technology when he was in the military shadow government, and he did this in the 1940s. He knew that I was going to be born, obviously. So he went forward to when he knew that I was going to meet my husband and found out who my husband was going to be, because ultimately he knew he was going to have to be my handler as well. And when he found out who my husband was going to be, he encoded me with my husband. And so it was always meant to be that I married him. It was encoded in my name. My name Erin, and then Sean in the middle. My first and middle name. Erin means peace, and Sean is Gaelic for Johnny, and my husband's name is Johnny.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is your husband aware of any of this?
Yes.
Was he aware before you told him, or is this something that you revealed to him?
I think he kind of knew. He's waiting for me to say it. My husband doesn't like to say too much about this stuff because it's still so new to him. His awakening is new. He knows what he's here for. He knows what he's got to do himself. He knows that he was also part of. They would go to him for coordinates during Desert Storm he was on the USS Saratoga, and they would pull him aside and ask him, okay, what's the next coordinate we should hit? Where should we target next? And they would get things from him. And he didn't remember they were doing these things to him until I started waking up. And I started remembering. And my son is a catalyst, actually, for my awakening. And my awakening was the catalyst for my husband's awakening. And my daughter, who was 13, has always been awakened to it.
Okay. But when you say awakened, being a Rothschild, being born into that sort of arena, were you sort of, at what point did you become awakened? Was it after you had your son?
It was about when my son was 15, so that would be about 3.5, 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
when I was
prior to that, where was your head at? What was your trajectory?
All over the place, because I couldn't understand why I was promiscuous. I couldn't understand why I would get angry so so quickly. My anger just is so, it's awful. I can just go off the handle right away. It doesn't take much to trigger it, and it's not bipolarness or anything. I found out that it was when I would get triggered from my programming.
Okay. And let me say here, just because, I ask pretty direct questions, and I know you haven't done this before, but I want you to feel free to tell me at any time that you don't feel comfortable answering a question.
You're feeling a little bit,
yeah. And I don't.
It's okay.
I don't want to scare you.
Oh, you're not scaring me at all.
Okay. But I don't want to intimidate you. I don't want you to, be caught unawares. I want you to know and feel comfortable with what we're doing here.
I actually feel very comfortable with you.
Okay.
So it's not that. I guess my nervousness is, I know once I walk out the door from this interview, I'm in extreme danger. I'm already followed. I'm chased on the freeways in San Diego. I have a brother who's a Rockefeller, and I will not say his name. I refuse to say his name because he calls hits on me all the time. He had his wife put all of my information, from my name to my phone number to my address and everything, how to get a hold of me, on Twitter. And they were, he had sent me money one time for my children to eat, because I was pushed aside to be poor and destitute for all of my programming, and he was left in the family to be rich, and he's at the top. I can't say who's his father, but so he sent me money one time, and it was $300. Actually, his wife sent it, and when it got to me in the States, it was $357. And the significance to that is he has Jesse James's 357 Magnum, and he had it in a picture, and that was a warning for me to shut up. And once I didn't shut up, that was not only a warning from him, that was like a warning from the entire family, Rockefellers, Rothschilds. They were wanting me to keep my mouth shut, and I didn't. So the hits started becoming once a month, once a week, and the day before we came here, they sent a motorcyclist up next to us that was, he looked in the car, looked at my husband in the eye, and then he swerved into us. Didn't hit us, but got close enough to where it caught my husband off guard, and we hit a car in front of us, which hit another car, and he drove off knowing that he had caused an accident, and nobody can find,
Sure, I understand.
Yeah.
So, but, okay, and so that was on the way here?
Yes.
Okay, wow, yeah. All right, so on the stage, you talked very specifically about, I guess what you were talking about was how you were brought up, and Dr. Mengele?
Mengele. Yes.
So do you want to talk about that a little?
Sure. I didn't know that up until just maybe April of last year that the man that I happily called Grandpa was Dr. Mengele, Dr. Green. And that's why my last name is Green. In these programs, I'm sure you know that we're encoded with colors. And I'm encoded with green because Dr. Green was the one who was he gave me the love up until I was 4. So my love bombing, the love part of my love bombing was him loving me. So I knew humanity from Mengele. I knew humanity in a way that nobody else saw from him. And to me, he was gentle, he was loving. There was a white rocking chair that he would get in, and he would sit me in his lap, and he would just sit, and he'd rock and rock and rock me. And I'd hear lullabies in German and English. He would tell me fairy tales and stuff like that in German and English. He gave me a wonderful and beautiful memory of a grandparent, because that's what I saw him as. I don't know if he's any kind of blood relation, because I don't know if Mengele is, within any of these families. I haven't researched that. I try not to research anybody's stories, because when I give my story, I want my story to be my experience from my firsthand experience. So everything you do hear from me is only me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but so somehow, though, he was part of your family at that time.
Right.
When you were...
Every day I would go to, up until I was 4 years old, I spent every single day that my father spent in the Pentagon. And I was allowed to do whatever I wanted. Admiral Hayward and Admiral Holloway, they were 2 consecutive SECNAVs during the 1970s. And I used to sit on their lap while my dad would bring me in, drop me off, and he would go and do his work in the shadow government that he had to do. And the Secretary of the Navies would sit me on their lap, pull out the coloring books and crayons, and I would sit in color and play in their laps, while senators and all kinds of congressmen, high-level elite, would all come in, and they'd discuss things, and they're not thinking a 4-year-old child is taking it in, And here I am. I'm brought here to be an observer. I'm brought here to know what's going on. So my little mind was taking it all in.
Okay.
And I've been in the Situation Room. I happily always walked into the White House before. We would even walk up to it, the door would open, and they say, "Hello, Mr. Green," and I'd just come trotting in behind him, and I could just go and do what I wanted.
Okay, so in a sense he was, did you see him also interact with your parents at that time when you were young?
No. Whenever I was with him, it was alone.
Okay. So in a sense, perhaps he was your handler at a young age.
He very much could have been. Like I said, he was a love part of my program.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
So did you grow up in like a normal house?
Oh no, it was so extremely strict, and I grew up with money, so I wasn't without money. It just wasn't as much money as my brother was able to grow up with, and there was a lot of abuse in my house, but there was also a lot of ETs in my house at times, and so I grew up having these meetings with ETs and stuff with my parents at a very young age.
Okay, so just to kind of paint a picture for people.
Okay.
Can we describe like the house that you grew up? Where was it? What state?
I grew up in Washington, D.C. my first 9 years, and then my second 9 years after, that's when my father retired from the shadow government, and he moved us down to Southern Maryland, and I had a normal house, and the only thing that was that we tried to portray a perfect family on the outside, and when I would go behind closed doors, my father would, I always knew when it was coming, because he would come in, he'd strip me from waist down, hold me by 2 feet, and I could hear the belt come off, and he would beat me until his frustration was done. And that was part of my programming, was to be beat like that. My mother, at least once a month, would poison me with something, and I could remember her standing over me, and I'm on the ground, and I'm writhing in pain, because this is eating my stomach alive. And she just looks at me, and she goes, suck it up. Get up. It's time to get up, And she didn't care. She wanted me gone because I was put with her, and I wasn't her child. And
when you say you weren't her child, whose child were you?
The mother on the other side.
Oh, okay. And do you remember the mother on the other side?
Loving as can be. Beautiful, loving, wonderful woman.
Okay. So what time, in other words, when you say, because it sounds like you were going back and forth from side to side then, because if you knew your mother as a loving person, then you had to be old enough to remember.
I have full recollection of before I was regressed from where I was before.
Okay, so when you say regressed, I think maybe it's the usage of that word. But let's say you lived a life on the other side, okay, and you reached. Let's even just start with the age of 4.
Okay.
If you're at the age of 4 on the other side, do you grow to the age of your age now?
Yes.
Okay, and when you say you're regressed, if you cross over to this side, then what happens to the person who is now, let's say, what is your age approximately?
I will be 44 in 2 weeks.
It's funny. I was just going to say 44 if your age is 44. I don't know where that was coming from. Okay, so you're 44. You go into this program in Canada. You walk into a facility as a 44-year-old woman. Then you're regressed, you say.
Right.
Regressed how? Do you know?
No, I just know it was painful. I remember my husband, before we came over here, my husband looked at me. He walked over to me, and I'm sitting on a couch like this. And he just holds out his hand, and he goes, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "You know this is going to hurt a lot." And I said, "I know." And there I came. I walked over with my father. And then I don't believe my husband's body or my children's bodies were brought over, but I do know that their souls were brought here and put in different, the bodies they needed to be in for our family to be together again.
Okay.
There's a mission with my family, and my family is brought here to do peace.
Okay.
It's just getting there. It's getting all of us super soldiers together and mind control victims and even the Project Ibis children together, all of us, so that we can change what's happened and use what's happened to us against who harmed us.
Okay. So, but are you a Rothschild on the other side as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So at this point, in some way you're regressed that you don't remember. But do you start out as a baby on this side?
Yes.
Okay. So you have to go through all those ages again, right?
Right.
Okay. So, but you have the memory, the recall.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I'm anxious to do regression sometime. I would love to do it so that I can. I feel that would be my way of proving it to everybody if I can have a videotaped regression done, so that people can see that I'm telling the truth. I have nothing to hide.
Okay, let me ask you: have you ever seen the TV show Fringe?
Yes, I identify with that absolutely 100%.
Okay, my question to you is: if you look at, I forget her name. It's not
Olivia.
Yeah, Olivia. When she goes back over to the other side, there's another Olivia there. Okay. So she doesn't go through kind of the way you're describing it. In other words, she's already on this side, grew up on this side, so-and-so. But the Olivia she meets grew up in a different parallel reality.
Right.
And I believe that we do have multiple realities going on simultaneously.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
we're all actually on both sides. But I've actually recently had some whistleblowers who are time travelers who have revealed to me what, and I it's been a leap of conjecture for me, basically saying, what seems to be happening, because they have identified that there are some people here who appear to be scientists, for example, Nazi scientists from the time of Paperclip, who are here even as younger men, but the same men. In other words, very famous scientists, Werner von Braun, for example, and what's this guy, Max? Is it Ingalls? I'm not sure. Anyhow, other people, and Mark Twain, for example, other people that aren't in black projects as we think of them. But basically what I understand is a possibility is the scenario that went on in Fringe, in which they actually crossed over and came over here. That body from that reality was brought over here, whereas the one that was here was died or done away with in some way.
Right.
So that's one scenario. Now, there's another scenario that sounds like, and then also that there's a component part of that wasn't in Fringe, but that they've actually learned how to do what you're just saying, which is regress. They've actually learned how to turn back the clock, so you not only don't age, but you actually can get younger.
Right.
And I don't think, now this may be the limits of my imagination, but I'm saying I don't think, in other words, I think it goes back to a certain, like I could be, at this point, I could go back to maybe 19. I probably can't go back to being a baby, an infant in a crib type of thing. So at that point, you have a gap. I know this is a long question, and I don't mean to go into like a big explanation here, but I'm really curious what you might think of this. Is it possible that you might have some missing time between the age of 0 and 10? I'm just, picking a number out of a hat, in which you actually don't have memories from this side.
That is an absolute possibility.
It is.
It's an absolute possibility.
Okay.
I don't push anything away these days. If somebody brings it to me, obviously there's a reason. So maybe I should look into that, and regression would be the way to do it. Right.
Okay. So, but it's not something that you are like at this moment. If I said, do you remember everything? I mean, nobody remembers everything. I don't think from when they were, like whatever age a person is to there's a zero even on this side.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
A lot of times there'll be gaps in your memory.
Oh. Anybody can have that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But have you ever noticed like a profound sense of any gaps?
In my 20s.
Gaps in your 20s?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Like whole maybe years or spans of time where you don't recall having been here, kind of like.
Yes. Years.
Because you don't have pieces to put in there.
Yes. Years.
Years. Okay. All right. It's just interesting. It's just gathering data. We don't. I don't know where it leads. I was just because I've been putting this puzzle together.
It's little puzzle pieces. Once we get all these puzzle pieces together, we'll find peace.
Yeah.
We just got to get all these puzzle pieces together.
Right. And I think that it's a fascinating story in general with humanity. And when you bring time travel into it, it's a new component that most people haven't really thought of. I don't know if you know, but I've just done a conference on time travel.
No, I haven't looked at it yet.
Yeah, no problem. But it's quite fascinating, and I have whistleblowers that are talking about time travel, et cetera. And so,
Mars yet?
yes,
a little bit about Mars too.
Yeah, and that would be great to hear your take on all of that. So, but so that we don't jump too far ahead, I want to stay in kind of this area. And I'm sorry if
No,
if
you're
even
fine
this
here.
seems a little confusing to people listening. I'm I'm conscious that I want to keep a through line. So at this point, you were regressed, you come back, you have these memories, and you're over on this side, but you are a Rothschild. You're growing up and you're being tortured in Maryland, and you're also...
I was also tortured in the Kentucky facility underground. That was my main torture point.
Okay, but at what ages? Because you started off, you said
I
then
can
you were
remember
going...
a valid memory about 12 years old, 10 to 12 years old maybe.
Okay.
And
the years when you were in the Pentagon as a child, after that, if you were just to try and make a through line, at what point do you get into the Kentucky facility? Where does that fit in?
Well, after I started getting raped at 4, because once I turned 4 years old, that's when my the painful torture started, the bad part of the love bombing. And the minute I turned 4 years old, my father walked me into a room, and a bunch of men that were high up in the Pentagon, I can't say who it was, they all raped me. And then my father took me home. My mother didn't care, didn't wipe me up, didn't clean me up, didn't take me to the doctors, didn't do anything, just sat me in my room, and that was it.
Okay, now, but did you have a conscious memory of this, or you had to be regressed to find this out?
I had a conscious memory of it.
From what age?
About 4 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
So it just came through at some point?
My son is the one that started breaking down first, and that's what started my memories just...
What do you mean your son started breaking down?
My son's a super soldier.
Okay, how old is your son?
He is 18 now.
Okay, and when you say he started to break down, what do you mean by that?
At the age of 12, I didn't know he started smoking marijuana, and marijuana is a deprogrammer. And by the age of 15, he broke down in front of me and my husband and said, "I don't know what's going on with me, Mom, but they keep telling me from the age of 2 on that my name is Jesus Christ." And through research and finding out, I found out it's called Chosen One Messiah Training. Yeah, and I'll show you pictures. On his back, all the way down his back, they took a whip to him, and they take these whips to these children to simulate what happened to Jesus. And they break him down, but they tell him, "You're Jesus Christ, you've got to get whipped," And I mean, I don't know exactly what he went through, because I didn't have that particular training.
Right.
But it broke him down something awful. I mean, it took years for me to get him to understand he's not Jesus Christ, and this was a particular programming done to him, and there's a few people in the world like him, so he's not the only one.
Well, I can actually tell you, because you probably don't know that much about Camelot, but in my work, I have people write to me all the time this kind of stuff. So there are many people out there being programmed, what I call them Manchurian candidates, basically.
Yeah. There was a Collins that I used to talk to quite a bit, and she told me she was afraid for my son because she thought, because there for a while he had such rage because of his anger over what happened to him. You, and I won't say this on camera, his name I should say, but you interviewed the man that was my son's handler, his abductor, and his torturer.
Interesting.
From age 2 on, I'll tell you after the camera's off.
Okay, yeah, I actually have a clue, but I'm not going to say anything here. Okay, just to go back to you. So you were in a Kentucky facility where?
I have, now that I think about it, from like age 4 to age 10, I don't really have much recollection of anything.
Okay. All right, that's fine. And then at 10, I mean, what I'm trying to get at here is you brought up the Kentucky facility, so I'm willing to go there. But can you say what age you were at when you were
12 years old. That's when they picked the memories right back up.
Okay, so you're at the Kentucky facility. Are you living somewhere at the same time?
Maryland.
So you're going
in DC,
back and
Maryland.
forth?
Yeah.
All right. Now, you said you had ETs, that you were in meetings with ETs with your parents. When was that happening?
Oh, goodness. If I could give an age, I would, but I don't remember the exact age.
No, but it doesn't have to be exact. Like a span. In your teens, later,
Oh, no, I was still
earlier?
little. This might have been when I was somewhere between 3, 4 years old, maybe even 5. I'm not sure. Maybe it's so confusing.
Sure.
I'm still trying to sort through all the files to figure this out myself.
Right, but would you say, because I have questions, in other words, I'm not so concerned, other than because it's helpful when a person's listening to the story to get a kind of chronology.
Right, absolutely.
But the chronology is not as important as the information which surrounds the incidents. So what I'm getting at here is that...
I was bitsy. I was still bitsy.
You were small?
Yeah.
Okay, and when you saw the ETs, what did they look like?
There was many different races. There was a human one. There was a couple grays, and they're tall, short. Absolutely, there were reptilians, but I'm a 50% reptilian myself, actual hybrid. So they were there, and my parents were sitting. They were on the couch, and I was so little. I used to go under the cushions and scare my family. When they would sit on me, I go rawr, like a kid, little kids do. But I didn't know what was getting ready to happen. But I put myself under these covers, and next thing I know, I have all these ETs sitting on me. And I personally believe they were consciously aware of me under them, obviously because of their telepathic abilities, and but they didn't let on. And my mother and father are sitting there with guns. I've never seen a gun in my house before that, and it is my belief they were wanting to take me, and my parents would not let them. And
Okay.
my parents kept telling them, she's under contract, she can't be taken.
Okay, but were they good ETs or bad ETs, would you
I
say?
never got a bad feeling. I never got a
Okay,
bad feeling.
but your parents had guns. So, but your parents were torturing you, so those weren't necessarily the good guys, right? Okay. I mean, I'm stating the obvious, but I just
Yeah.
want to be clear here.
Yeah.
So but,
I could have been, I think that ultimately maybe they were trying to take me away from all the pain, because never once have I ever been hurt by any extraterrestrial, no alien being. It has always, always, always been an Earth human that has tortured me.
okay. I have a lot of different places we can go, but before I go there, when did this memory come back to you?
I've always had that memory.
That never
That
went
never
away?
went away from me.
Okay.
This
So
is something I told my husband back in 1987 when I met him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were cognizant of ETs and that whole side of life, so to speak.
Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you this: as you know, as a member of an Illuminati family, you grow up. They're doing these things to you, but the things aren't just done because they're bad people per se.
Right.
They actually have a purpose in mind. It's a twisted purpose, but it actually has an objective.
I know.
Are
and
you
I know
aware
what
of
you're-
this?
Yeah, I'm extremely aware of it, and that's why I've forgiven them.
Okay.
I'm okay. You know, I know what happened ultimately had to bring me to a good part, but I had to be broken down in a way that was very binding to this 3D world. I had to be bound to this world, but I had to be bound to it through the pain that Gaia was feeling also, you know.
Okay. Did they ever sit you down and communicate it to you in, XYZ? Did they talk about it?
You know,
So where did you learn?
soul cell memory.
Okay, through meditation?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you start to meditate?
About a year and a half ago.
That's all.
Yeah.
Okay, but
I took a year time away from even being consciously a mother and a wife. I took myself and I sat in my bedroom, and I would lock my door at times, and I would sit there with the TV off. I would have no computer with me, and I would just meditate on my own DNA. And my DNA, I knew that my DNA would tell me everything, and it has.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I do have to interject that my brother, who's the Rockefeller, told me that I tried to talk to him before about everything because I knew my mom wasn't my mom. I knew that things were askew. I knew that all these ETs were coming into my home and everything I told you. And I was trying to put my own puzzle pieces together, and I'm like, what's going on here? And he said, there's absolutely no way I'm telling you. He said, but in 3 years, you're going to come back to me. And in 3 years, you're going to ask me the question, am I right about everything about myself? And he said, at that moment is the moment I'm going to tell you that you're absolutely correct. And in 3 years, I went back to him, and I didn't remember the conversation with him about this until after I had asked him, am I right about everything? And he said, the one-word answer was yes.
Okay.
And then I remembered asking him, talking to him about it.
Okay, now why do you call a Rockefeller a brother?
We have the same ET DNA.
Okay, so you believe you're related on the ET side. What about is there a marriage between the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds?
They're all interbred.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's a dumb question in a sense, but what I meant is, were you aware of a specific,
No.
bloodline relation?
No, my brother was made in Area 51. You probably know who my brother is, but please don't say it on camera. He is vicious.
Okay.
And people call him a fraud, and he's not a fraud. I have witnessed what he can do.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting trajectory. Let me ask you, if you say your brother was made in Area 51, you mean he was a test tube baby kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay. Does he know that?
Yes. He's a fully conscious being here. He was groomed in the Rockefeller family to be at the top. And he's a very secret at the top person.
Is he head of MJ12? You don't have to answer that.
And I'm not going to.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Let me ask you this. Growing up, going through this trajectory, you're saying your real sort of awakening, though, only happened like 3 years ago?
Yeah, it's been between like maybe about the 3 to 5 year time span. I started having a little, like, I would tell my husband, things are askew about my family. I know it. I know that there's something going on here. And then when my son had his breakdown, it was like a flood started happening in my family immediately. Just everything came. And the SS that did this stuff to my son was the actual first person that we went to about everything.
Really?
And I didn't,
that wasn't exactly the best
no,
choice.
but I didn't know that at the time.
Okay.
The afterwards is when I found out that he was the handler.
Right, right. Very interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
I was led to him because I just, it can only be divine that you're led to something like that, you know? It really is, because that was just telling me that it was time to find out everything.
Okay. Now, what you told me is that you hadn't, when you went on stage, although it's the first time you did it kind of that way, that you said you had been talking about it.
I did 2 really itty-bitty radio shows that it was more like talking to a group of people, you know, maybe 10, 12 people or so.
Okay.
And so it was like just having a get-together with family, you know, or friends or something. But I did a radio show in January called The Galactic Connection with Erica Getch. And that was my first real, like, coming out to everyone.
Okay.
That had 300,000 live viewers, and I didn't know it until afterwards. And if I had known it during it, I probably would have stumbled all over everything, because I'm just a nervous wreck telling all of this.
Okay, well, no one would know that. I mean, you have a wonderful sense of poise, but I'm afraid it came from a very dark circumstance.
It did.
So, you know, as much as I can say that it, you know, you have maintained a great sense of poise within all of it. But
I did a lot of work to get here. You know, a lot of work on myself in that year to be able to be calm enough.
Okay. And so did you plan to come forward?
You know, a part of me always wanted to say something once I started learning it, but the more I got harassed and the more directed energy on me and the more my brother pulled the hits on me and stuff, I stepped back just ever so slightly once in a while. And when January came, I don't know, it just was like, I knew it was time. It was just time. I know it's the beginning instead of what people thought was the end last year. I know this is the beginning. So if I don't begin to tell and begin to disclose everything I know, then I'm hiding a very vital part, because my father ultimately was someone who was a very, very dark creature in this world. And I have a lot of guilt about what my father did, because I'm here at the summit with people that some of them are as old as me, or some of them were being programmed during the time my father was in there. So I feel guilt that my father has done this to these people. And I feel like if I don't come out, then I don't release them either. You know?
Okay, but I understand who you say your father was, more or less, but we're also talking about the entire Rothschild family, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of, you know, the lineage of this group of people, right? You understand that the reptilian influence on them.
100%.
Okay. And yet you fully acknowledge that you're half reptilian, right?
Absolutely.
And when we talked off camera a bit, you and I both discussed the fact that not all reptilians are bad.
That has been my mantra from the beginning, because I have never had a bad experience with them. I've not been subjected to my family, the Rothschild family, from, you know, since I was little, or on the other side or whatever. But so I don't have the darkness of that to compare it to, because every reptilian I came across was always kind to me and gentle with me. In the Pentagon, they would sit me in a chair, and I would sit there just like a little, you know, little kid does, swinging my feet back and forth, just looking. And there would be a row of them in front of me, and they would, you know, and just like that, and just stare at me and just look at me. And it was the oddest thing, but they did it so much that I became comfortable with it. And one time when I was in the Kentucky facility, one tried to get me away from the humans so that I wouldn't be tortured anymore. He said I had enough. He kept telling them, she's had enough, let her go, release her. And they said, no, another person that said she's under contract. She cannot be released. This contract is a lifetime contract. And so he looked at me, and I've never in my life seen a reptilian cry, and this reptilian shed tears. And he said to me that I can't do anything more for you. They won't stop. So what I'm going to do for you right now is a gift. And that's when my lights went blank. That's when everything went dark for me, and I stopped remembering, because he put the block in, so whatever they did to me, I wouldn't, you know, consciously remember it.
Okay. Along those lines, do you remember interactions with the Catholic Church?
Yes, I've seen ritual sacrifices of children in the Vatican, in the bowels of it. It's vile. It's the most vile place on earth. It's the most evilest, darkest. It is evil personified. God is not there. God left the building. God never entered that building and never will. Okay. He wants that building gone. He wants all of the popes gone. He's done with those popes. That whole scenario there is nothing but a sacrificial, ritualistic, evil. I can't even say enough about that place. It's awful. It's the worst place in the world.
Okay, but I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the Black Pope?
Yes.
Okay. Did you meet him?
Consciously, I don't remember that.
Okay.
If I did.
Okay.
I'm sure. I mean, with everything that I've been through, I'm sure I have. On more than one occasion.
I think it's logical to assume that, but I'm not going to, you know, put words in your mouth.
Right, right.
So with that in mind, though, we're talking about reptilians, and because there's so much misunderstanding about reptilians out there, I just want to make sure that it's clear. So you believe that at least the reptilians you dealt with and the half of reptilian that you are, you believe that's a positive, in other words, we say service to others being?
Absolutely.
Okay. But you would acknowledge that the reptilians that you saw sacrifice humans, etc., are not service to self, would you not?
They are service to self.
I mean, service to others.
Yeah.
They're service to self beings.
Correct.
Right? Okay. So with that in mind...
and it's just a small minority of them. It's like on Earth, you have the humans that, most humans are really good humans, you know, they just want peace and they just want to live. They want to do what God put them here to do, and that's just advance their souls. But then you've got that little faction of people that just fight against everything, and it's not the good fight, not the fight that I'm in. You know, it's the fight to continue to hold us in this third dimensional density that we're in. And yeah, it's just a small minority. You have a lot more good ETs than you have bad.
Okay. And as far as what's going on, though, here on Earth, you do see the controllers moving in to take control of society.
Yes.
And sort of tightening the reins on society. You see the movement of the New World Order.
Absolutely,
and
the Fourth Reich?
Yes.
Yes.
And the head of that would be the reptilians,
Yes.
right? The
Obama
service
serves them well.
to self. Okay. And are you also aware of what is called the Anunnaki?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And is it your understanding that the Anunnaki and the reptilians are not the same beings? Or do you think that they're the same?
Anunnaki is it encompasses many races.
Okay, right. But if I was to say Anunnaki in the sense that Sitchin talked about, in other words, Enki, Enlil, and Anu, if I was to say those three names, and I was to say that as Anunnaki, those are, at least how they're depicted on the Egyptian temples, is as humanoid, looking. In other words, they can be 9 feet tall.
They weren't human.
Okay. And so do you believe that they were reptilian?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What about the notion that they might be half and half?
It's a possibility.
Okay, have you heard of Syrian reptilians?
No.
Syrian Anunnaki? You haven't heard of that?
No.
Okay. Because my understanding is that there is more than one race of that particular group from Nibiru, and that some of them appear to be
make sense.
Syrian.
Sense. You got Earth that has many different races.
Yes.
So why not Nibiru?
Exactly. But it is an interesting sort of line of investigation, let's say, because what I find is that people have different perceptions and different understanding about who the Anunnaki are. This race of Anunnaki are the ones that are descended from Enki, Enlil, and so this is a certain race, and they appear to be, from what I can tell, half reptilian and half what appears to be a humanoid-like species, rather than pure reptilian.
Right.
Okay, which is, we, in a sense, and this is me throwing this out, we have a smaller portion of reptilian than they do. So exactly, we're not half and half, although you say you are. We are more, some of the humans here are a portion reptilian, but then more other races. In fact, my investigations,
I call it hodgepodge.
Yes.
You know?
Well, I would say there's a base 12 various species of ETs that went into what makes humans,
Well,
what we call
that's
this
why you got
human.
Majestic 12.
There you go. So you're aware of this sort of thing, this line of inquiry. Okay.
I just don't talk about it a lot.
Okay. But you see that it's okay to talk about in at least.
Now I do. I just haven't in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I am very interested in people starting to understand our ET heritage, so to speak.
Absolutely, I am too. That's the main thing for me. I have taught all of my children so that they're absolutely aware of where they're from, who they are, and the fact that don't think it's a curse to be a half reptilian. They look at it as a gift now. You know, my son for a while cursed it, but now he sees that he was given a gift. You know, you got to look. A lot of super soldiers don't look at what they get as a gift, and a lot of the bloodliners don't look at what they get as a gift. And really, it is a gift. We're here for a purpose, and our blood serves that purpose.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, we have a limited amount of time here, and this is a great opportunity and a great chance to talk to you and go down these roads. Maybe we can do this again in the future, even long distance. If you're in San Diego, actually, you're not that far from me.
I can always drive up.
Okay, and so because I happen to be just north of LA.
Okay.
But at this moment, just in the interest of time, you went through this torture, you witnessed torture. At a certain point, you must have been, like before your awakening, so to speak. How did you deal with it before your awakening?
I was very promiscuous.
Okay, so you were exercising, okay.
searching for love any way I could get. And I was married at this time, you know. I've been married since 1989. So my husband has had to put up with a lot. But he something inside of him told him that he just needed to stick with me through it because there was a bigger picture that was going to be figured out later. And obviously there was. But I became extremely promiscuous, and that's my Monarch programming, you know, that was coming out of me. I would always be promiscuous with military men. It was always a military man.
Okay. When you say you had Monarch programming, did you go on any kind of missions in those roles?
Yes. I can remember taking one man to his death.
Okay. So in a sense, you knew you were being used or programmed, even though you weren't awakened the way sort of we're talking about it.
Oh, there was always something off in my mind. I knew there was something that I needed to figure out about myself because I couldn't pinpoint why was I doing these behaviors? Why was I acting out? Why would I get so upset? Why would I go sleep with all these men? I have a beautiful, wonderful husband, and I would go off searching for love, and I had unconditional love at home. You know, I had what I didn't have with my parents. I had the love that was absolutely unconditional from my husband.
Okay, but aside from being a wife, you were programmed as a Monarch's sort of slave, right?
Right.
And perhaps being sent on missions during those years as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even astrally speaking.
A lot of my work was done astrally.
Okay. At the same time, you were aware that you were a Rothschild. Is that correct?
I wasn't aware that I was a Rothschild until about 4 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What did you think you were?
I didn't know what I was.
So you knew you grew up in Washington, D.C. You knew that you were in the Pentagon as a child?
Oh, that was an aware memory that I've always had.
Okay, so you were aware of that. So you knew you came from like the military-industrial complex,
Yes,
so to speak.
I even remembered the rapes that were done to me at 4 years old, but I didn't know why they happened to me. I thought it was just something that happened to me. I didn't realize it was part of the programming. That was my very initial breakdown. That was the time when they took me from 1 to 2. You understand what I mean, from
Right.
my personality to 2. And then they were able to start working on me. They took me away from the man that loved me so much, and that was Mengele. And that broke me in and of itself. And that breaking plus the rapes did it. I split then.
Okay, right now I'm talking to Erin.
Right, absolutely.
Is there multiple?
I like to think I've integrated, but who knows, you know.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, yeah.
They tried to wipe my, before I came to this summit, they did try to wipe my mind. And they put, I was almost completely wiped. And my children, my husband had to help me through it. I had to read letters and messages, texts, look at my Facebook. I had to start relearning myself again. So I've had to learn my memories twice. But they put an alter in me that was named Sarah Sinclair. And that's why I go by Sarah Sinclair on my Facebook, because I was identifying with that when they were wiping my mind. And right before I came here, they me-lapped me every night for like 2 weeks straight. They were trying to tell me my husband doesn't love me anymore, your family doesn't love you, you know, nobody loves you anymore, and breaking me down so that I didn't come here.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you made it.
I am too. It's the most amazing time in my life because I finally found what I considered my family.
Okay. You know, there's an interesting thing going on with you that I want to throw out there. I'm an intuitive, and I see things sometimes, and I just want to throw this out and see where you go with it.
Okay.
When I saw you on stage, you look like a much older woman. When I see you here, you look much younger. In other words, you seem to kind of be morphing, and you seem to actually, in a sense, you seem to be more in your 20s, where you are kind of like in your mental environment. Like, as you're talking to me, you seem like a person in their 20s who's just discovering themselves. That's how you seem.
I've had people tell me that before, actually.
Really?
Yeah, you're not the first.
Okay. Yeah, it's just an interesting dynamic. So can you kind of feel that?
I feel it when I start talking. I can feel my vibration just spin so fast.
But I mean, are you having a sense of time traveling? Might be too strong of a term, but in this sense, when I'm talking to you right now, it's almost as if the years between, you say you're 44, and that came into my head, so I assume that's correct. Between 44 and say 20, do you feel that there was something that went in during that time span that somehow, in order to leap back to have this conversation we're having in a sense, you almost have to go back to being 20 again?
Yes. Makes absolute sense.
It does?
Makes
Okay, it
absolute
just seems
sense.
like a weird dynamic happening
You
in
just
here.
put a puzzle piece in for me. Thank you, Carrie.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to put it together myself as I'm looking at you, okay, because it's just it's quite jarring. I don't know what'll show up on the film. I just know what I'm seeing, you know, so it's very interesting, you know. Okay. Just in terms of the big picture, and I don't even know, how do you feel about the big picture here on Earth? Do you think you know the scenario well, or do you think you're learning it?
I'm not allowed to tell.
I'm not asking you anything about it. I'm asking you, do you think, like if I just say, do you think you know the scenario as it's being rolled out here on Earth? Do you think
yes,
you know?
it's deja vu. It's complete
Okay.
deja vu to me. Every time it happens to me, it's deja vu. I know what's going to come. I know what's going to happen.
You do?
I can't say because what I know is going to happen, humanity is not ready to hear about. So it's going to take time. When I think humanity is ready to hear it, I'll speak it.
Okay.
But that also gets me killed too.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You know, so that's why I appreciate that. I just was curious whether you, and this information, does it come from the ETs, do you think, or did it come from your family? Because obviously the Rothschilds have an agenda, the Rockefellers. They are part of this future of humanity. They have an agenda they want to see happen. They're working very hard to have that happen. It may not happen, okay, the way they want it to happen.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that's key. But are you aware, for example, of something called Project Looking Glass?
I've heard of it, but I've never looked into it, so
Okay.
I don't really know it.
That's okay.
Yeah.
What about the Yellow Book?
Yellow book? No. I don't.
Yellow Cube?
No.
Nothing about that?
No. See,
Okay.
like I said, I don't look into things because I try to stay true.
That's all fine. You know, in some
Now,
instances.
Project Paperclip directly affected me because it was the Nazis brought over here.
Right.
Yeah.
And why do you say that?
Because they brought Mengele to me.
Okay.
You know, they brought that. The Nazi influence is heavy in my family
Okay.
from my father and mother.
All right. And do you feel, did you meet a lot of the paperclip scientists?
A few.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I talked
I've
about.
never admitted that before. Only Mengele have I admitted to before.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
When a little earlier, I talked about a time traveler who had been talking about these scientists who have been seen, have been working, and they're actually, what they do, this is what I was told. What they do is they actually are here. They've been regressed to much younger ages. They're in their like late 20s, sometimes their 30s. They're working very heavily on projects, but they actually have jobs that make them look like they're surface, what I would call surface people. They may have some low-level job in a clothing store or a office supply store.
My father's cover job was a congressional aide. So
Okay.
He was only supposed to be known as a congressional aide. That's it.
Right.
And he headed everything.
Yeah.
You know?
So-
irony at its finest right there.
Yeah, and so there seems to be some, like, even that's a time travel technique. In other words, to have the one sort of, and maybe, and this is another part of the story which I was trying to piece together, which was maybe they have clones that are being used to go to work that day and appear to be like a normal human while they go into the underground base and take care of certain business.
You're very intuitive.
Okay. Yeah, well, no,
Yes, you're
this
right.
time
That's what I'm
traveler
saying, is you're right.
person came to me, revealed these elements, and, you know, there was no other way to explain what he was talking about but then to say that, in other words, to jump to that place.
They have several containers.
Yeah.
It's just not one or two. There's several. See, the government knows how to take your soul and just put it in this one, or put it in this one,
Right.
put it in this one. You know, people don't understand that it's a very easy process, actually. You know, we could do it ourselves. We can pull our own souls out and put it in another container. Takes
Well-
a lot for a human to do it, though. You know, for like you or me or someone else to do it without tech, I should say. It takes tech to do it. For us to do it ourselves, it would take a high vibration from us to get our souls to pop out to do it in a conscious manner.
Okay, yeah, and that gets into all kinds of ethics, but there is also a darker side to that would be called possession.
Absolutely.
Okay. In terms of, let's just say, in terms of the occult, were you taught this information when you were growing up?
I was always taken to church. My parents made a point of always going to church because that was the cover. Now, if any, I don't remember any satanic anything.
You don't remember being taught the occult?
No. But
Okay.
I feel it heavily in my life. Aleister Crowley is very heavily ingrained in me, and he tries to charm me all the time. He sends me hearts when he needs more people on his side. He wants me to be over there because he knows my vibration level, and he's trying to get me back. You know, he's trying to get me back with him.
Okay, and so you're talking about him as if he's still alive.
He is. He's a time traveler too. He
Okay.
had access to time travel tech. So he's here as if he was still a young man, you know, middle-aged man or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to get everything back, you know. He wants it all back for himself.
So well, what that tells me, and I'm not so sure that makes sense, and I'll tell you why, and you can tell me why it does. Okay, so I'm throwing out that because I have studied the occult, and I do know a fair amount about Crowley, and I don't know everything about him by any means. But what I would say is that, and this is actually something I puzzled over, and I feel this way about, for example, Enki and Enlil and so on. In other words, there must be a way that these individuals progress. They can't have all this knowledge and not progress. So it seems strange to me when you say he wants it all for himself. It doesn't seem logical, based on what I know about Crowley, that would be true of him now.
Well, he's still under contract to bring darkness. Until we become peaceful, his contract can't end.
Oh,
So
and that's how you, okay, who told you that?
I can't say.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, there's a lot that kind of thing I could walk out the door right now and I'm done.
I hear you.
Yeah. Those of us that are part of Project Ibis, we're encoded with Crowley. Crowley's encoded in our DNA.
Okay. So can you read the tarot?
The tarot?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do that quite a bit.
Yeah. Do you use the Crowley tarot?
I don't know what the Crowley tarot is, so I
You
would
don't?
know.
Well, do you know which deck you're using?
Oh my goodness. I feel so stupid right now because I don't remember the name of it. I have 2 separate decks at home. I have an angel deck, and then I have a deck that's copied off of the first tarots, the original tarots that were made.
Okay, so you must have the old style deck, which I don't know the name of that. All right,
It
fair
has
enough.
a tower where you see the Pope coming out and the Queen coming out. You know what I'm saying? That card.
Yeah, I forget what it's called, but I understand it's the old style deck.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but there is a Crowley tarot. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it might be interesting for you in this awakened state to look at those cards.
Yeah, that's what I was
because
just thinking. I
his
should go.
partner, sort of wife partner, and I forget her name, I think it might have been Frida or something like that. Or maybe I have her name wrong. Anyway, at any rate, she painted them.
Oh.
And they're quite beautiful.
Yeah.
They're more beautiful
Well,
than
you
the
know,
original deck.
Crowley made Thelema. Thelema is a beautiful religion. It's beautiful. It's very spiritual. So people have to understand he's not all darkness. He's really not all darkness, not in my eyes. But, like I said, I'm encoded with him.
Right.
So to me, he's not anything more than just an experience. He's just another part of my puzzle piece. I don't really feel so much darkness. I think to myself, why in the heck am I getting hearts from him, But that kind of throws me off a little bit. And I just tell him, I'm sorry, but my hearts go to my husband, And that's how I put it to him. And he leaves me alone for a little bit, and then he tries again. And then I get him to leave me alone. It's just an on and on and on process for him.
Okay, are you in touch with members of the Rothschild family?
No.
Not at all?
No.
Okay. Have you ever been?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
When I was a child, we used to go around them all the time. Because
Okay.
as a child, I was very used to being around Kennedys, around Rothschilds, around Rockefellers, around all of those elite. My father always was taking me around them.
Okay. Have you traveled the world at all?
Not consciously that I remember. I don't have a passport.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I never knew whether I could get one or not. I'm sure I'm on a no-fly list with my mouth that flies.
Okay. Well, it would be, though, everyone's, basically your travels are also for self-awareness. So the more if you were to travel, I would encourage you to do so, first of all, because it will awaken more memories.
I would love to.
As a soul.
Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah. Okay, well, at this point, I'm going to shut this down, and I'm supposed to go speak for a short bit, and I don't even know when, but there's some other people coming along to hear, but thank you so much for this.
You're welcome.
It's been a great conversation.
Yes,
and
I very much enjoyed it, very much.
Okay, thank you. And I wish you well, and I hope that you can come forward again, and that we can talk some more.
Yeah, I'm going to come forward until it's all out, until everything's peaceful. I won't stop until peace happens. That's why I'm here. Erin means peace. I'm here for peace.
Okay. All right, thank you, Erin.
You're welcome.